This is LukePaulson, the Catholic Conservative, and welcome to the news of the week for April 5th, 2025. And if you enjoy these videos, do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. France's election meddling. One of the greatest cornerstones of a republic is free and fair elections. While President Trump is protecting this by demanding proof of citizenship to vote, across the pond in France, they have a different problem. One of their candidates, Marine Le Pen of the National Rally Party, has been barred from elections for 5 years. Knowing absolutely nothing about French politics, I turned to the most reliable source outside of Wikipedia, ChatGPT. According to it, her party has more in common with President Trump and the Libertarians than anyone else. Whereas the opposing party, the Renaissance Party, is more akin to Democrats and so-called moderate Republicans. Now, the 5-year ban comes after she was convicted of graft, or the fraudulent use of one's political position for personal gain, to the tune of 4 million euros or $4.33 million. I know absolutely nothing about the case, but something about it does not match the sniff test. This potentially ensures that President Emmanuel Macron will run unopposed. Awfully convenient in my humble opinion. But what would I know? I'm just someone who makes political commentary videos. Naturally, Le Pen and the French people are not taking this lying down. I suspect her team is finding a legal way around this, and her supporters are peacefully protesting. And unlike Democrat protesters in America, they are probably not paid to protest. Paid to protest. Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez supposedly had record attendance at their socialist rally. However, according to Mario Newfall on Twitter, I refuse to call it X. GPS data shows that the people who were there were also at a number of other similar events. Now that in itself is not an indictment. Most of these people probably do not have jobs to go to. It is one more reason Obama's inauguration crowd was so big despite the cold. Most of the people there probably did not have a job to take off from. However, Newfall is not done yet. He claims that the crowd was in no way organic. The majority of the protesters were connected to Disruption Project, Indivisible, Democratic Socialist of America, Rise and Resist, and Troublemakers. All of these were reportedly funded by ActBlue, which was exposed by OMG as you recall, and some received aid from USAID. If that second one sounds familiar, it should. It is the so-called charitable branch of our federal government that Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, went after first. There was so much waste, fraud, and abuse that it was unheard of. This means that we are paying, through our taxes, for people to hear Sanders and AOC advocate for socialism. I would not be surprised if George Soros was in here as well. To my knowledge, as of the recording of this video, they have not sued for defamation, a part of their typical lawfare. This implies that they know he is right and hope that this story will just go away. Now, while these people are being paid to support socialism, other protesters are truly organic. Gaza stands up to Hamas. Hamas, backed by terrorist states across the Middle East, is the de facto government of the Gaza Strip. Like most totalitarian governments who are willing to use women and children as shields, they crack down on any anti-government rally with extreme prejudice. However, that is not happening this time. Children are even seen holding signs such as, "We want to live," and "We refuse to die." These people want Hamas out. Israel acknowledges human rights that those under Hamas could only dream of. In truth, Israel is not an apartheid state. If you do not believe me, just ask former South African parliamentarian Moisa Lakota, who says that Israel is not apartheid. As someone from an apartheid state, he should know. If Hamas is gone, will there be peace in the Gaza Strip? Or will another terrorist group fill in the power vacuum? I honestly do not know. However, I do know that the only one who can save us is the Prince of Peace. And President Trump can make America great again all day long. But unless we see a revival, it is meaningless. False prophet in the White House. President Trump has long since appointed Paula White-Cain as the White House faith advisor. This is not a cabinet position, but from what I can tell is more of a ceremonial role. Now, when she was first appointed, many on the Christian conservative side of the aisle did not like her. The Babylon Bee even satirized the appointment by saying that President Trump appointed Satan to the office. When I first heard it, I was willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. One of my biggest weaknesses is that I give people the benefit of the doubt more often than I should. I was willing to see how Mrs. White-Cain handled the job. However, this most recent event has made me realize that she is hopeless for the job. She is selling 7 blessings from God for a donation of $1,000. This is in direct violation of the Didache, a book of rules written by the apostles, as well as Peter's rebuke of Simon the sorcerer in Acts 8. It is my opinion that she should be removed from her position and replaced with someone more honorable. As for me, I nominate Kent Hovind. Even in MAGA 2.0, there are still people who are working against President Trump. However, let us turn to an ally. No more free soda. SNAP is one of the welfare programs that exists on the federal level despite these programs being illegal. I worked at a gas station for many years, and as such, it was not known for high-class clientele. Most of the people came there for morning coffee and to get gas. However, every so often, someone tried to buy our cheap food with food stamps. And without fail, they tried to buy cigarettes and beer with cash. Thankfully, we did not accept the former as payment, and so they were forced to buy food with their money, rather than cigarettes and beer. However, there were some things that these thieves could have potentially bought, such as soda. If you can afford soda, you can afford water. I have lived on a budget before, and it is not pleasant. But my paycheck is not your piggy bank. Now Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is trying to make it illegal to buy soda under SNAP. I mentioned the other week that these systems are beyond corrupt. This is why these programs need to be at the state and local level, if they should even exist at all. However, financial responsibility is not the only goal of RFK as he works to make America healthy again. He is also targeting commercials for drug companies. End of drug commercials. Ever since I was old enough to pay attention to commercials, I remember seeing drug commercials. Back in the olden days, there were even commercials for cigarettes. I am sure that you have seen Fred Flintstone advertising Winston cigarettes. These commercials do not air anymore because of how dangerous they were. And after every one of these drug commercials, we hear about a litany of side effects. RFK is trying to get rid of these advertisements as well. America and New Zealand are the only countries that advertise these chemicals on television. If you are asking your doctor for a drug, he is not your doctor. He is your dealer. Naturally, Big Pharma is going to be hard to beat. But if anyone is up to the job, it is RFK. And since he is backed by President Donald Trump, who is backed by the American people, it might be a lot easier. Despite everything that his administration is doing, the Democrats do not want to make America great again. As such, the only way to get them off of his back is to troll them. President Trump, the master troll. President Trump has been trolling the fake news for a long time. Whether it was claiming that he was going to make Canada the 51st state, even though that would bring a bunch more Democrats into the House, or saying that he is going to take Greenland by force. He is having so much fun at their expense. However, this most recent one is so fun that I am not even sure that I should be making this video, considering how much they are losing it. President Trump is officially considering a third term even if there are constitutional limits. President Trump trolled them even more by saying that he is, quote, not joking, close quotes, just to watch them squirm even more. And while I would love to see this happen, it is just not legal. However, he can do what Obama did with Brandon.
And I used to say, you know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats, looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony. I'd be fine with that.
In the meantime, they are squirming because he is taking care of business. Trump gold cards sold. President Trump initiated a gold card where, for $5 million, a person could start a business in America rather than just giving away visas. According to his Commerce Secretary, 1,000 have been sold. This is a potential of $5 billion into the American coffers. That is not including all of the jobs that were created in the process. People who have that much money to spend will likely create countless jobs in America. In short, this could really help the economy. However, some people are rightly worried about the job losses in the interim. This is what is called creative destruction. In the olden days, factories hired someone to rap on the windows to wake up employees. Then the alarm clock came around, and all of these people were out of work. However, more people were employed making alarm clocks. Capitalism may not be perfect, but it is worlds better than the alternative. However, there are some jobs that I would be happy if people lost, such as government jobs and people in the fake news. For example, NPR is the premier combination of government jobs and fake news. The End of NPR. NPR is officially politically neutral. However, even Bill Maher finds that laughable. And this is someone who wanted a recession just so that President Trump would not be reelected. Their editorial board is made up exclusively of Democrats. There is no diversity of thought. However, there are probably a lot of DEI hires. Moving on, there's a new push by President Trump to pull NPR off of the airwaves. PBS is potentially on the chopping block alongside NPR. I question why the federal government would need a media outlet. This could in no way be a part of Operation Mockingbird. Operation Mockingbird is here to remind you to never question the official narrative. In truth, government agencies should not be trusted, and the fake news should not be trusted. Put them together, and you have a recipe for disaster. However, this branch of the fake news is not the only thing that is being cut off. President Trump is also targeting one of the most evil companies in America, cutting off Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is one of, if not the most evil company on the face of the earth. St. Paul told the Corinthians that the devil masquerades as an angel of light. In the same way, these people claim to be offering many services vital to women other than their infanticide, including STI testing and other services. I do not have a problem with those, and I doubt that President Trump or the American Life League, which was founded by a woman, would have a problem either. All these doctors have to do is stop killing children, and then we will leave them alone. You will be told that this is a woman's issue. Tell that to the 9 men who invented a constitutional right to kill children out of thin air, or the rapist who can get rid of the evidence for his crime. Men are allowed to comment freely as long as they agree with killing children. Now President Trump is withholding tens of millions of dollars from this modern-day Auschwitz, and it is perhaps the greatest thing that he has done. If they need federal funds to operate, maybe they will die like a fish out of water. However, some people are so afraid of losing funding that they will resort to lying to keep it. For example, the NIH is lying over the straw man that they have of Doge. NIH versus OMG. James Welch is a counselor for the NIH. During an undercover date, he did something interesting. He suggested changing the word race to ancestry. Now, to the average person, that might seem like semantics. However, it is a big deal the more that parents of different races mix. Of course, you and I know there is only one race. The human race has all descend from Adam and Eve, but there are some differences. I am not a specialist in genetics, but there are some ways that drugs can act differently on different people groups. You can have ancestry from 10 different parts of the world, but none of those are your race. I mentioned that NIH created a straw man regarding Doge, so let me explain that a bit more. They have decided that just because Doge and President Trump are cutting DEI hiring, that someone who is trying to perform research will be targeted. Doge is not an automaton. Multiple things that Doge cut have been reinstated. So Mr. Welch created a straw man and is willing to risk scientific accuracy as a result. What a pathetic excuse for an expert. Maybe I'm just blowing smoke. Maybe I'm completely off my rocker, but that is just my opinion. And do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. But before you go, on the left I have last week's video, but you may also enjoy the video on the right.